Hello, America. Glad you're here tonight. We have, I think this is going to be an interesting show. Tonight, we've been doing our Founding Fathers Fridays, or I don't even know what we call them anymore, but we've been doing those, and I want to do something a little different tonight. I want to build off of what we started to build at the very beginning of this summer, and that is on the faith of our Founding Fathers and what changed it. How did that happen? We told you the story of George Whitefield. George Whitefield was a guy from England who just started. He was kicked out of all the churches because they were like, wait a minute, no, power goes to us. And he was saying to the people, no, power comes from God, and you don't really need anybody in between you and God. Listen to God. God will tell you what to do. Have a personal relationship with God. Well, that changed things here in America because he came over on the boat and he decided, wow, I mean, America is going into spiritual darkness. It's what's called the First Great Awakening, and it spread to all of the preachers. Those preachers preached that from 1740 until 1780, and that period inspired our founders. A lot of the words that came right directly from the pulpit are in our founding documents. Well, we talked a little bit about this on this program, and then last Friday, 8/27, the night before, my wife and I rented the Kennedy Center, and we invited a few people to speak, along with David Barton and I, and then we filled the Kennedy Center with preachers, pastors, and rabbis. I think we had about 2,000 of them or something like that, and then we filled the rest of the Kennedy Center with just people, normal people. In fact, was anybody in that audience? You two in that audience? None of them made this. Tickets were really hard to come by, and we have been playing it now on Insider Extreme at glenbeck.com, but this is, people said that attended, this was better than the 828 event because it really was the nuts and bolts of spirituality and what we need to do. When Alveda King walked in, she looked pretty beat up that night, and she was under threat and everything else for standing with me on the stage the next day. And she walked into the Kennedy Center, and I was walking towards the stage, and she walked in, she looked so tired, and I said, Alveda, get ready, because you're going to feel it here. And she stood there for just a few minutes, and we talked, and she walked backstage, and she said, whew, I do feel something happening. She told me the next day, as she was getting ready to walk on stage, she said, Glenn Beck, the next time you tell me to expect miracles and have something big happen, I'm going to believe you. Something huge is happening in America. I believe it is the Third Great Awakening. George Whitefield, the first one, led to the American Revolution. The second one started with the churches and led to the freeing of slaves with Abraham Lincoln. This one, I think, is going to change just as much. It is, an awakening happens when people realize the stuff that they've built their life on is meaningless, and there's corruption and everything else. And it's nothing political. It's spiritual in nature. So I'm going to go over the, well, here, let me take you over here to the chalkboard, and I want to show you here this is what I talked about. I've been talking about this for a year. The media is now calling in because of the speech last week. They're like, was Glenn Beck becoming a preacher? No. When did this start? Last year. Faith, Hope, and Charity. Thanks for watching. Faith, Hope, and Charity. This is the answer. People are going to the election booths, I think, and they're saying, hey, we got to elect a Republican or a Democrat. No. The answer is faith, hope, and charity. Then I gave a 40-day challenge. This is what I said on the stage last Friday, and I beg you to take this, because this is the answer. The end of the Declaration of Independence, my favorite line is, with firm reliance on divine providence, we mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor. That's the key. Jefferson loved codes and puzzles, and I believe that is a code. That's the way out. What does it mean, with firm reliance on divine providence? Well, if you're going to have firm reliance on anything, you got to know it. You can't rely on something. You're not going to have firm reliance on a ladder if it looks pretty rickety and you've never been on it before. Firm reliance means you trust it. And you only trust it because you know it, and you know it to be true. Let me ask you, why are you going to church? Why are you going to your synagogue? Why are you doing anything? If you are, why? Is it because, well, you just always have? It's what your family always believed? In times of great strife, that's not going to cut it. You have to have firm reliance on divine providence. Divine providence, by the way, is not manifest destiny. Divine providence is you're in the flow. You're doing things and you're trying to be a better person. And you're in what the founders called the stream of nature's God and nature's laws. And that's why, coincidentally, it looks like something providential is happening. Well, it's because you're in the flow. Manifest destiny, which our country went through and is a horror show, is the perversion of that. And that is, get out of my way, I'm on a mission from God. There's no humility in that, and there's no God in that. You have to know who God is and be humble enough to listen to him and get into the flow and depend on him. If you know who God is, you'll know who you are. And you'll know that you have a purpose. You're born at this time for a reason. I don't know what it is. You're going to have to figure it out. But everybody has a reason to live. And the media will ridicule you if they say, the Kellogg, Institute, or all I think of as not the business school, but the cornflake people. I wish it was the cornflake people. I like them better. But the Kellogg Institute once did they wanted to do a study on my company. And they said, because all the decisions you make appear to be wrong, and yet they all work out. And I was talking to my business partner, and I said, they're going to be so sorely disappointed when they hear the answer, because they'll never believe it. The answer is, on how we make decisions, we pray on it. And then we just do it. It may seem wrong. A lot of times we're like, you got to be kidding me. But that's what happens. Now, maybe it's all a coincidence that things work out, or maybe there's something to relying on divine providence and knowing that God talks to each one of us. They'll make fun of you for saying, I'm listening to God. Oh, are you? He's listening to voices. No. He's just listening to that small, still voice inside. With firm reliance on divine providence, we mutually pledge to each other our lives. That means you don't get to do all the stuff that you might think you wanted to do. It means that you're going to have to give some stuff up. You're going to have to volunteer. It means you're going to have to, maybe you can't retire at 65 because you got work to do. It's not necessarily dying for what you believe in. It's like George Washington when they knocked on his door after he retired and said, I'm going to go be a farmer. And they knocked on his door because the country was falling apart. And he answered the door and he said, have I not done yet enough for my country? No. God's never done with you. Our lives, our fortunes. This means make the hard sacrifices. I have to tell you, the hardest thing for me to get my arms around was tithing. Tithe 10%? You got to be kidding me. My agent takes 10%. And I give God 10%? What's left for little old me? It was the best decision I ever made. You never felt charitable on tax day, but you feel charitable every time you turn in 10%. You do. It makes a difference. It makes you feel good. It will change. Prove me wrong. Try it. And the best thing is, now I can call up my agent and I can say, gosh, I'm really clear on what God did for me this week. What have you done? Fortunes and sacred honor. A lot of our founders, they lost their lives, they lost their fortunes, but they never lost their sacred honor. That means tell the truth, especially when it hurts you. So, faith, hope, and charity, and the 40-day, 40-night challenge. Find these things out. Make them true in your own life. That's our topic today. And I have three of my new favorite people. Dave Reaver is here. Dave is a decorated Vietnam veteran and founder of the Reaver Foundation. He is joining us, believe it or not, from Wasilla, Alaska, at Governor Palin's home. Can we roll the tape of what happened earlier? Dave, you had the most high-powered, high-priced makeup artist ever.
I did. And
yeah.
And as wonderful a person as I've ever known.
Yeah, Sarah was, we were trying to find a studio because you were up in Alaska, and we were trying to find a studio, and Sarah volunteered hers, and then when we said, we'll have a makeup artist come over, and she's like, I'll do his makeup. Then we also have from Seattle, Rabbi Daniel Lapin, the founder of the American Alliance of Jews and Christians. He is in Seattle, Washington. Hello, Rabbi. How are you?
Hi, Glenn. How are you doing?
I'm very good. You were quite amazing. All three of you were. You were quite amazing on last Friday and in the Kennedy Center, and I thank you for being here today. And Miles McPherson, he is the pastor of the Rock Church in San Diego. He is the author of a book called Do Something, Make Your Life Count. He is also former defensive back for the San Diego Chargers. Miles, how are you?
How you doing?
Okay, so let me just start here, and you guys just feel free to chime in at any time. There are people now that are starting to print that I'm building some political coalition, blah, blah, blah. This has nothing to do with politics. But is there any disagreement here that if we do these things, everything will change?
Well, I can speak for myself. When you talk about the Great Awakening, we all have a personal Great Awakening. And I went through a period where I was using cocaine and living wild when I was playing in the NFL. And I was doing all the things the world says. Chase money, women, drugs, happiness, fun. Do what you want to do on your terms. And it was killing me. And I found myself in a crack house with a crack pipe 2 feet away in my friend's hand, watching my life go up in smoke. And then Christ came into my life and said, and when I found God, as you're talking about, and I found out who he made me and who he created me to be, my life changed. I got off cocaine in one day. And God said, now I'm going to show you why I gave you the big mouth you have. And you're going to talk about me. And so, I pastor the church, the Rock Church in San Diego. I want to say hello to everybody in San Diego. But if people find out who their God is, we are made in the image of God. You got to know whose image you were made in and what that means. Then your life will become fulfilled and your purpose will be very clear.
Rabbi, can you tell us a little bit about discovering God or made in the image of God?
Well, yes, very much so. I mean, for me personally, a transformational moment was when I realized after many years of studying the Bible, it was my early 20s already, before one of my revered teachers said to me, look, the Bible is not a dusty document about detailing legends of long-forgotten cultures and people that are no longer on the planet. It is God's comprehensive matrix of all reality. And that is the essence of the ancient Jewish wisdom that then wrapped my own life as I realized that even something like politics is nothing more than the practical application of our most deeply held values. And so in shaping a culture, and I do believe that the word culture, which comes from the old word for religion, I mean, the word cult, nowadays you think of Jim Jones and Kool-Aid, but originally in English, the word cult was just another word for religion. Early Christianity was a cult. It was a religion. Culture is the kind of society shaped by its religion. And I think one of the greatest cover-ups of the 20th century has been the extent to which people have forgotten and been made to forget the role of religion in sculpting the shape of a society. So having the right fundamental values flows from there directly into the practical application of the area of politics. So what you were saying on Saturday, Glenn, was precisely to the point, which is that focus on the things that really count. Let's pay attention to our boss, Father in heaven. Follow the instructions and the practical application.